The rural church is the overlooked ministry. Because rural churches or rural communities are isolated and often do not generate the growth that denominations will look at and say, there is a viable ministry economically. So that they don't see the value of starting rural churches. Today, church planting focuses upon the suburban, the urban, the ethnic. But yet, rural areas constitute 25% of the United States, and 33% of Canada live in rural America, or rural areas. And many of them are lacking even an evangelical presence in close proximity to them. That if they wanted to go to church, they would have to travel significant distances to get there. And so there's a need for evangelism. And so the rural ministry is often the overlooked ministry. So the needs are great. But see, the problem is our perception of rural areas. When we think of rural areas today, we think of very religious communities. And in many ways they are. In the community that I mentioned that I was pastoring in Montana, where there's 1,200, about 90% of those 1,200 people would claim identification with one of the churches in that community. The problem is that if you talked about percentage of people who, what I would say would be born again believers in Christ, have a personal relationship with Christ, the numbers would drop from 90% probably to 10 to 15%. But yet, from an outside, we look into and say, well, there's not a need for a new church or more efforts of evangelism and outreach into that community that's already been evangelized. But see, we need to distinguish between what is being religious and what's redeemed. That the need is great, that many of the rural areas are very unchurched, are very dark communities in terms of the gospel. And there's a need for evangelism in that.